Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
And we're here.
That we are.
I'm T.
And I'm Jay.
And we are the ones who like to talk about serial killers
Serial killer.
and a little bit of coffee or drinking.
Or drinks, whatever.
And a lot of bit of Disney. It's just who we be.
And just shit.
Yeah,
we like
just
to
chill.
talk about shit.
We're married, so we like to chit chat. And then when we chit chat, we like to bicker. And when we bicker, we like to fight. And then we do it all over again.
AKA every time I say something I'm wrong and she wants to prove herself. Countdown has begun. We're one day closer to Disney.
Yeah, we will be in Disney. By the time you hear this, we will actually be back from Disney, actually.
That is true. That is true.
We are leaving, but we're pre-recording because then I'm not trying to rush to get everything done when I get back.
One of these days we should record it while on the rides.
No, that sounds like a terrible idea.
Talking about serial killers.
Maybe
in
Haunted
Disneyland.
Mansion would be the only one I'd maybe consider doing that on.
Or the other death ride. The Ferris wheel. Yeah.
It's not a death ride. It's a
Slider
good time.
Alley.
You've never been on it, so don't knock it till you try it.
I've never been murdered either. Don't want to try either one.
Okay, well, then fine. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to force you. Nobody's going to force you. Since we're on the topic of Disney, because, that's just what we're on.
Check Costco. They got some great freaking
Oh,
prices.
yeah. They apparently came out with like a really good like ticket deal at Costco, which whatever, because we already bought our tickets. But
Yeah, it's like 3-day park hopper, genie parking, all that fun stuff for like $440 something.
genie parking.
Whatever.
It's not.
It's got all the shebang to
It's
it.
called Lightning Lane.
Yeah,
not
whatever.
genie parking.
I was thinking like the genie pass or whatever it's called.
Oh, well, the genie. I don't even think it's called that. It's a lightning lane.
I don't know. They keep
It was a
changing it.
yeah.
I'm back in the day of fast passes.
Yeah,
so
that I know. Wish they
your
were bring
lightning
those
lane.
back. But
your
anyways,
lightning lane.
so yeah, we'll be there, and we're excited because tomorrow's the last full day that we have here, and then we leave literally the following day in the afternoon. So, good times. But really, right now we should be focusing on what we came here to do, which was to talk about serial killers.
But before we get there, we got to talk about what we're drinking.
We do.
So what are you drinking?
Oh, why thank you for asking. I am actually drinking today an iced sugar-free almond latte with coconut milk because I don't do the dairy thing because it hurts my stomach. So if you haven't tried sugar-free almond, if you're into the sugar-free flavors, my most favorites are sugar-free almond, sugar-free hazelnut, and sugar-free coconut because they're about the only ones that I can that I drink that don't have that weird taste to it. How about you? What are you
Nice.
drinking?
I'm drinking a hot tea just because I felt like, having tea. And yes,
It
has
doesn't
sugar
taste like
in
dirt
it.
because he doesn't
It's
want.
got sugar.
It's got sugar because he doesn't like the taste
Pour
of dirt.
some sugar on my tea. If you don't like dirt.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now that that's over with and I have made your ears bleed, let's get into what we're here for.
We shall.
Who we talking about today?
So today we are talking about a man named Peter Tobin.
He's a man.
He's a man. His nicknames are Peter Wilson, James Kelly, Paul Semple, John Tobin, Peter Proban, and Pat McLaughlin. Those are all like all over the
range of names.
It really is.
It's not like the murder of Southeast
Right,
blah blah blah.
right.
It's like
he wasn't nicknamed
Pat.
for his killing. He changed his name
Yeah.
and alias a bunch of times.
yeah, so those are his aliases, not so much
Correct.
nicknames or anything like that.
Correct. He does have 3 or
Or
more
more.
victims. Murder dates, the official murder dates are February 10th, 1991, August 1991, and September of 2006.
That's a big gap.
So you can just probably guess why there's a big gap there.
He was in jail.
So the location of these murders were Scotland and England. and the method of murder was stabbing, and a characteristic of his murders were rape. Peter was born August 27th, 1946 in Johnstone, Renfrewshire. We're going to say Renfrewshire in Scotland. Now, he was the youngest of 8 children, and his parents were Daniel and Marjorie Tobin. He had 4 older sisters and 3 older brothers. He actually was described as a difficult child by like everybody.
That's a big family. I mean, you got 8 people ahead of you.
He was like not your typical bratty youngest. He did bad things like from a young age. Like he did bad things. He was just a really hard child for them to control. So he was sent off to a special school in 1953. So he's 7 years old, which is literally like first grade, maybe second grade. And they're sending him off to a special school. Now, this special school was typically somewhere that people would send their children if their children had criminal offenses. Like if they had done bad things or had sort like petty crimes, the parents would send their kids there to basically go to school and live there.
But they sent him there because he was a dick.
Some of the students, though, were there just because their parents could not control them. And so they would send their children to that school. So he got sent there when he was 7. Now, it was reported that at some point, he actually joined the French Foreign Legion. Now, what the French Foreign Legion is it's a corps of the French army that allows foreign nationals to serve in the French military like service. However, he does end up deserting this. He doesn't actually follow through with it. At some point, Peter actually ends up serving a sentence for forgery and burglary, and he's actually sent to a borstal in England. And for those of you who don't know what a borstal is, it's a facility for young offenders. So it's essentially the equivalent to a juvenile detention center in the United States. It's where they send young people who are offenders. In the United States, the cutoff is 18. If you're 18 or over, you can't go to a juvenile detention center. Maybe it's different in England.
Yeah, maybe it's older over there. Not sure.
So when he gets out, he ends up moving to Brighton, Sussex in England with his girlfriend, Margaret Mountney. So she was 17 at the time he was 24. So they had a 7-year age gap. Now, they had actually gotten married either 1969 or 1970. The dates are a little mixed up. There was like a couple said 1969, a couple of them said 1970. But I'm actually more inclined to believe 1970 because 1970 is actually when he got released from the borstal. And that's when he actually moves to the England area to, live his life. Now, by 1971, the two had actually divorced. So they only stayed together for like a very short amount of time. Then in 1973, Peter marries again. Now, this time he marries a woman named Sylvia Jeffries. She's a 32-year-old nurse. They have a son named Ian. And a year later, they have a daughter named Claire. Now, sadly, Claire actually dies not long after birth. So they are just left with Ian. Now, this marriage lasts until about 1976, so about 3 years. Now, it was said that there was quite a lot of violence in their marriage as well. And this is actually in 1976 is when Sylvia grabs her son and escapes from this marriage. Now, Peter, of course, moves on as one does when you're just going through marriages. And he ends up actually having another son named Daniel with a woman named Kathy. Kathy was only 15 at the time. 1976 is when his marriage ends. I do not know when he actually met Kathy Wilson. However, let's just do the math on that real quick. 1976. That means that he was 30 years old. And he's messing around with a 15-year-old and gets her pregnant. Now, they do end up getting married in 1989.
Damn it, 13 years later.
Yeah.
So she's 28.
But they didn't necessarily meet in 1976. I was just saying the last time that I had a date was 1976, but he might have met Kathy in the early 80s. I don't know. It didn't say when they met. It just said he went on and had another child, Daniel. And again, they got married in 1989. And then by 1990, they actually moved to Bathgate, but their relationship soon ends as well. So May of 1991, Peter actually moves to Margate to be closer to his younger son. So that would be Daniel. That would be the one that he had with Kathy. So he ends up moving to Margate to be closer to Daniel. Now, in August of 1993, 2 teenage girls are attacked in his flat in Lee Park, Havant. Now, the 2 14-year-old girls were actually there trying to go to Peter's neighbor's house. So like they were there to visit the neighbor, but the neighbor wasn't home. So the 2 girls had asked him like, hey, do you care if we wait in your flat until our friend comes home? And he's like, yeah, of course, no problem. Now, once they get inside, Peter threatens the girls with a knife, forces them to drink alcohol, waits until they're both heavily intoxicated, proceeds to rape both girls, and stabbed one of them. All this time, his fucking child was in the apartment, in his flat with him. Now, I did read a part where a piece where it said that Daniel didn't really have recollection of this specific incident because he was 5 years old at the time. So just really quick, doing the math on that, if he was 5 years old in 1993, when would he have been born?
88.
So Peter and Kathy got together probably 1987 or 88 is when they got together, because they got together and had the baby before they got married. So just so you know, just so everybody is clear. So there's that. But the other thing was, so Daniel actually came out and said that he, doesn't remember this really that much. However, his mother is the one who came out and said, no, I know that this happened because he told me when he was 5 years old, after he came home from his dad's house, what was going on. And at one point, Peter even looked at his son, who was 5, and asked him to get him ice so that he could clean up the blood on the ground. So this all happened like around him. Now, after he does all this stuff, Peter then turns the gas stove on, but doesn't light it, thinking that the 2 girls will die in the apartment. And then he basically leaves. Now, I'm assuming he takes his son, drops him off at the mom's house or his ex-wife's house.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Right. And he bounces. He leaves because he's basically leaving them for dead. Now, they actually survive. So Peter ends up fleeing, and he tries to hide out amongst like a religious sect called the Jesus Fellowship in Coventry. Now, he ends up getting caught because his vehicle is actually located, and the 2 girls can confirm who he is, and he is actually convicted and given a 14-year sentence in May of 1994. That should be the end. The end!
You would think.
But no. He actually only serves about 8 years in prison total, because he was like held in prison for a year or whatever, and he's actually released in 2004. And he was 58 years old when he was actually released at this time. This brings us to February 10th, 1991. Vicki Hamilton disappears while she's waiting for the bus to take her home. At the time, there was not any information about her disappearance. I don't even think they had suspects. They just like one day she was there. She had said goodbye to her family, went to this bus, she had like not a layover, but basically had to catch a second bus, and she disappeared somewhere during that time. And she was a younger girl. She was a younger teenager. Now, August 5th, 1991, Dinah McNichol, who was 18 years old, is hiking home from a music festival when she disappears. Now, she had actually been hitchhiking now there's 2 reports. It was either her boyfriend or just a male friend of hers, but she wasn't alone. Like she was with somebody else, and it was a male, and they were hitchhiking together to go home from this festival. And they get in this car with this person. This person drops off the male at his stop, wherever it was. And then she stays in the car because the guy's like, I'll bring you to your place. She's like, cool. So off they go.
She never makes it there.
There's like no sign of her. Now, again, nothing is found out for a very long time about what happened to Dinah, but in the moment, it was kind of like what even the male person probably could have given like a semi description, but you have nothing. Like, what are you gonna like? You don't think about the things that you should be really paying attention to, right? Now, in September of 2006, so you have to remember 1991 because we had to jump backwards. He went to jail in 1994. So he had 2 murders in 1991, nothing. And then remember in 1994, he's in jail and he gets out in 2004. So there's a big time gap. So in September of 2006, Peter is actually working as a handyman for St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church, and he's using the name Pat McLaughlin. Now, this is because he was actually on the sex offender registry and didn't want anyone to know about it. He had also left his last known location without notifying the police, and there was a warrant out for his arrest. So he basically made a new identity for himself. A girl named Angela Kluk, she was a Polish student who was actually working as a cleaner at the church while also staying there, because I think she was also a student. She was last seen alive on September 24th, 2006, and she was last seen with Peter. Her body is actually found on September 29th, 2006 under the floor in the confessionals. She had been raped, beaten, and stabbed to death. And forensics also suggests that she was still alive when she was put under the floorboards. They had a few different people they were suspecting. The reason they suspected Peter was because people had actually seen them together. And they were just like, okay.
Yeah, like
Little
last known
suspect.
person, like
Right.
you're automatically
You're
going to
be
talk
looked
to that
into.
person.
Correct. Now, on October 3rd, 2006, Peter is arrested for the murder of Angelica. And he is also questioned for a very long time about the disappearances in 1991. However, I'm not 100% sure what the connection was that they made to make him. I mean, there's some connections, but I don't know how they connected the fact that he wasn't actually Pat McLaughlin and he was Peter Tobin. I don't know how they made that connection. Obviously, they were doing some sort of searching or, whatever to make that connection. Now, he is formally charged with the murder of Angelica, and his trial starts in March of 2007, and it lasted 6 weeks. And on May 4th, 2007, Peter was found guilty of the murder and rape of Angelica, even though he insisted he was absolutely not guilty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 21 years. And the judge who oversaw it, Judge Lord Menzies, actually described Peter literally to his face like, you are an evil man. Like, if I could do more, I would, basically. Then in June of 2007, police are still investigating and looking into the disappearance of Vicki Hamilton, which is the first victim. Now, somehow, some way through their research, they can find a connection with Peter Tobin. I don't know if it's just he lived in the same area where she was missing from, or if they found some other connection. But in that moment, they were like, okay, wait, hold on. We need to be checking a few things. So first they go and they're like, we're going to search in one of his residences that he lived in Margate, because that's where she went missing from. Now, and they knew that he had been in that area during that time that she had disappeared. Again, I do know because it's part of my shots, but I don't know in detail I don't know in detail what made them connect the dots here. So this actually, as they're looking into this old residence in Margate, they also end up realizing that he has another residence that he had lived in too, not far from this residence. So we're going to check both residences. So in November of 2007, the police actually confirmed that they find remains of a body buried in the garden on that property. And those remains happen to be Vicky's. So after this discovery, he is officially charged with the murder of Vicki Hamilton. Now, on November 16th of 2007, so we're still in November, they are also able to find and identify a second body in that garden. And that is the body of Dinah McNichol. Now, in November of 2008, Peter is actually tried for the murder of Vicki Hamilton, the first girl who went missing. The prosecution literally brought out the fucking big guns for this one. So they not only had evidence that he had lived in both houses, they not only had eyewitness testimony of all of his suspicious behaviors while he lived there, they also had evidence that completely destroyed his alibi that he tried to say he had. They also found DNA and fingerprints on a dagger in one of the homes that they found hidden in the walls in the home. They found...
Yeah, it's not a good look.
No, they found DNA and fingerprints on Vicky's purse that was found. And also on that same purse, they found the DNA they found. I found this out later, so I didn't add it. I'm just remembering it as I'm reading it. The DNA that they found was actually his son's DNA. So what their thought is that purse was given to him to play with while he fucking killed this.
Yeah, while he did his business.
And then there was sheeting that was wrapped around Vicky's body when she was found, around her remains, and his DNA was on those sheets. So you're not getting out of this fucking one.
No.
Yeah, you're not.
No, they got you.
They totally got you. So on December 2nd, 2008, Peter is found guilty of the murder of Vicky Hamilton. And this judge actually says, you stand convicted of the truly evil abduction and murder of a vulnerable young girl in 1991 and thereafter of attempting to defeat the ends of justice in various ways over an extended period. Yet again, you have shown yourself to be unfit to live in a decent society. It is hard for me to convey the loathing and revulsion that ordinary people will feel for what you have done. I fixed the minimum period, which you must spend in custody at 30 years. Had it been open to me, I would have made that period run consecutive to the 21-year custodial period that you are already serving. So I don't know if that means he was only...
No, it means they didn't do it back
so
to back.
He
just
was,
added basically 9 years.
Yeah, so basically because of the way their laws were, he couldn't give him 30 more years to make it 51. He could only give him extra to make it 30 years.
Yeah, up to 30.
Correct. So then in June of 2009, a trial is held for the murder of Dinah McNichol as well. However, this was postponed because Peter was, at the time, was not fit to stand trial because he was pending some sort of surgery. And so they were like, hold on, we got to hold. But on December 14th, 2009, the trial resumes and his defense literally presents nothing.
They're like, we ain't got shit.
Literally presents no evidence, no testimony, nothing to help him. So the trial takes 2 days and the jury deliberates for less than 15 minutes and they find him guilty of murdering Dinah and he receives a 3rd life sentence for this one. I think at that point they were like, you're fucking cooked.
Yeah,
bro.
they're like, look,
I don't know what you want us to do.
It doesn't matter. Just fucking take it.
Exactly. And let's do the math really quick. This is 2009, so June of 2009. So he's 63 years old. He's not getting out of jail anytime soon anyways. He was literally in 2008 given 30 years. I mean, I guess to be fair, he's been in jail since 2006, right? Because that's when he was.
That's 3 out of the 30 years that he has to serve no matter what. So if in 2004, he's 58.
Yeah, so
he's got to serve 30 years. Wait, when did he get the 21?
He got the 21 years in 2007.
Okay, so 2007, he got 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets added to 30. So just from 2007, he is...
We're in 2009.
Right, but 2007, when he was convicted, he was 63 years old.
So
61 years old.
So 21 years.
Right, but because
82.
it's 30, he would be 91 years old by the time he could get out.
Right. So I feel like...
So by the 3rd one, they're like, look,
I feel like
it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, they were like, just give him a guilty verdict because at this point, he's never getting out of jail. He's going to die before he gets out of jail for sure.
Yeah.
So on August 9th, 2012, Peter is actually taken to the prison hospital with chest pains, believing that he was having a heart attack. But he did not. He lived. Then July 1st, 2015, he was actually slashed with a razor blade while he slept. He had actually left a 20-centimeter scar running down his face and neck.
Damn.
That's crazy to me. I'm like, first of all, I'm not trying to stick up for this man, but he's an old ass man. 2015, like I can't do the math because I'm really awful at math. But in
69 years old.
Okay, thank you. You fucking slashed a 69-year-old man from fucking.
Hey, he might have been talking shit.
And maybe.
And you figure 20 centimeters, it's, what is it? 2.5 centimeters in every inch. So you're looking at like 8 or 9 inch
big ass scar
down your face.
And then in February of 2016, Peter is actually hospitalized after suffering what they actually suspected to be a stroke. So he's having a rough ass go of it, right?
As he should.
I agree. Now in 2019, he actually had become super frail and was diagnosed with cancer. And he was diagnosed with cancer way later than he should have been because he continued to refuse medical examination and medical tests when they had a suspicion he could have cancer. Then October 8th, 2022, Peter falls in his cell, while he's in his cell. And he ends up actually dying from those injuries. And he was 76 years old when he died.
Damn.
Now I am going to tell you, there is or at least there was, I don't know if there still is, but they want to do a inquiry into his death because it was a very suspicious circumstance. The fact that he was in his cell fell in a way that caused him to die.
He got his ass beat.
I don't know, but they did. There is.
I mean, he must not have been making friends. He got fucking slashed.
I know. Well, I mean, he did kill 3 girls, and maybe more, and one of them was young. So I maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm sitting here going. I mean, I felt it was suspicious too. However, if they thought he suffered a stroke, and if he was frail anyways from cancer. There is a chance. I mean, he did just die, but to die, I mean, there's a chance he fell, but to die from his injuries.
Maybe he fell off the top bunk.
I'm saying that's what that's what they want to look into because they're kind of like, we don't quite understand how this works. So the other thing was when he was brought to the hospital from this fall, he wasn't dead. Like he was hurt, but he wasn't dead. But they knew he was going to die from his injuries. So police actually kept talking to him and saying like, do you have any other murders you want to confess to? Because here's the time. Like, if you want to clear your conscience, like, tell us what there is. And actually, I was reading that his son, Daniel, had actually reached out to him, like, as he was getting sicker and stuff and being like, I just want you to confess to everything you did. Like, I want you to tell people all the women that you killed. So I think his son actually may have more knowledge on it.
Right.
Or maybe thinks he has more knowledge.
Yeah,
but
like some flashbacks.
Yeah.
Some memories.
Yes. And so it was to no avail. He did not confess to killing anybody else. And actually, he never actually confessed to even the ones he was charged with. Till his dying day, he swore he did not do it. He swore he did not. Which, bitch, they had your DNA, motherfucker. Yeah. You are not going to sell me on that shit. They had your DNA and fingerprints on that shit for at least one of those girls. The other 2, sure, I guess, but they all had the same exact types of injuries. They were all hidden and buried. And also, Dinah was buried with the body of Vicky. Vicky's shit is what really got you. There's no way you had 2 bodies buried in your garden that you didn't fucking do it.
Choose to bury
exactly.
Like
all of a sudden somebody
spot,
exactly. So I'm like, no, bro, you don't got that. So that is the story of Peter Tobin. I do have shots. Would you like to hear them?
That's why we sit through this.
Okay, so all 3 of Peter's wives. So he was married 3 times. They all said that he was super charming right up until they got married. And then at that point, he would become a sadistic and violent psychopath. So he was very much Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? Now, there have been suspicions by many that Peter Tobin is actually Bible John. Now, for those of you who don't know who Bible John is, we will not be talking about Bible John on this podcast probably ever because it's unsolved. But he is a serial killer. So Bible John is a serial killer to this day that has never been identified in the area, same like England area. The reason that I won't do it is because same reason I won't do Jack the Ripper. I hate not knowing who it is. However, there is that party that I do think I'll end up doing it because just to know, I read a whole book on Jack the Ripper. It made me go, okay, there's actually suspects out there. So we can talk about who the potential suspects could have been, but it will be one that you will never know. However, they were able to take DNA from Peter Tobin and they have DNA apparently from one of the victims of Bible John. They have some DNA on from one of the girls and it was not a match. The other thing is Bible John was described as people who supposedly had seen him as somebody with red hair and Peter Tobin did not have red hair. So that was but for a lot of people, I don't know, I haven't done the research on Bible John, but from what it sounds like is it's the same type of situation of going after younger girls, killing them, stabbing them. Right? Yeah. So that's why they were kind of like, okay, well, this seems pretty fucking familiar. So he's not Bible John, but it was a thought. Then in 2006, the police department I said that really fast. Okay. In 2006. So this is why I said, I know where the link is, but I don't know details. So remember, he got out of jail in 2004. So in 2006, I think this was after Angelica's body was found and after they realized that this man killed that girl, the police department kind of started talking about just him as a person. And they're like, he's got a lot of shit on shit because he went to jail for fucking, 8 years for this exact thing that he supposedly isn't responsible for. But instead of the girls dying, they didn't die. But he did the same exact shit.
Yeah, so let's look at what other are
So
out
this
there
is
that
weird.
are similar or missing persons.
Yes. And after talking to him and interviewing him, one of the actual, like the main detective was like, I just looked at, all the other detectives and was like, I honestly think he could be a serial killer. Like he literally has the makings of a serial killer. The way he carries himself and talks, like we might have more on our hands than we're thinking. So they actually created a task force that was called, well, not a task force, but they created an operation, and it was called Operation Anagram. And the whole point of it was to try and find victims that were victims of Peter's. Now, they kept it a secret because they were like, if anybody gets wind of this, he's going to fucking try to lie his way out of it or hide the bodies or whatever. And they didn't want people to be worried. So they're like, let's keep it a secret. But the biggest problem they had, so here they started this in 2006, which is why 2 years later they make the connection to Vicky Hamilton and then Dinah McNichol and all this stuff. But part of the problem is it was really difficult to follow where Peter had gone because he had over 60 addresses that he lived at in his lifetime.
And a bunch of aliases.
And over 40 aliases.
Oof.
So it's really hard to even find somebody when that's constantly, you can't really track them. So that is how they made that link, is through Operation Anagram. That is how they made the link to the 2 women in 1991. Now, Peter has also been suspected in multiple other murders. So there was one, Louise Kay. She was 18. She disappeared in 1988. Now, it was discovered that Peter was working in a nearby hotel at the same time that she disappeared. And it was also discovered that Louise said that she had met a Scottish man before her disappearance. And she said that the guy was giving her gas money or petrol money. And so the fact that she met a Scottish guy in that same area.
Like,
well, I don't know if I was going to say,
so.
I don't know if it was necessarily Scotland, but I don't imagine that this woman would say, I met a Scottish guy if she was in fucking Scotland.
But even if they're in England,
you would say,
right,
you meet a Scottish guy.
I know, but what I'm saying is like, is that area prominent for Scottish people?
I mean, I don't know. But I mean, the fact that she met a Scottish man that, an older man too, by the way. So there was that. Then a girl named Jessie Earl was 22. She actually disappeared from Eastbourne, and her remains were actually found in a dense shrubland area on Beachy Head. And this is actually a place that she actually frequented. And this also happened to be the same place that Louise had vanished from. So her body is found in the same area that Louise had vanished from. Now, Peter was actually working in that area at the time of this disappearance as well. And Jessie actually had talked about how she had met an older Scottish man while she was out walking in that Beachy Head place. And she said that he made her really nervous. She had told this to people. Shortly after her body is discovered, because her body was discovered not too long after she disappeared, Peter moved his family out of that area because he was married and had a child at the time. And he quickly grabbed his family and moved them out of the area. So
yeah, too many coincidences.
Now they never have been able to make direct links, but those are 2 of the women that they had a little bit more detail on, that they were like these are people that we really feel strongly that he may have done something to. And my final shot is there are at least 12 other women that he has been suspected of killing, but they have never been able to find any links directly linking. They can't even find links as in they can't find out if he was in the area because he has so many fucking aliases. Yeah. But the point of it is these women, either the disappearance, how they disappeared, or where they disappeared, or having any knowledge had he been not even in the area, but had he been in the country, in that city or whatever at the time. Those are the things that they've been able to link to be like, well, there's a good chance he did this person too. And then some of them, if they found the body, the remains will give away, did he do the same? Like, is this similar to the other crimes?
But it's one of those things where you've got multiple killings happening because if he's been suspected to be Bible John.
Right.
So Bible John must have been doing shit at that time too. So
Right. Well, but again, that was in the, I don't actually know. Actually, I'm not sure when Bible John was actually an active serial killer, but I don't know if all these women were at the same time frame.
Right.
These are just women that they have come across as they do their research based on the things that they did know about Peter, that these people had gone missing in these areas or whatever. Now, the sad part to all of this is they actually ended up stopping and closing down Operation Anagram, which kind of sucks because if they had been able to continue, even though he died, they have his DNA on file. They may have been able to find things in the future.
Gives closure to people.
But the reason they stopped it is because the funding just wasn't there. So they were unable to continue to do it. And there wasn't really any more leads coming in for them to really push for more funding, right? So they're not going to give funding to something that's just like at a standstill. So it's kind of a bummer on that end. And it sucks that he wouldn't say anything before he died because it's like you could have at least given closure. But again, he's one of those people that doesn't really seem like he cared about that. I mean, you know, it doesn't really strike me as the kind who gives a shit. So Peter Tobin was just a bitch. Like, I don't even know how else to say. He was just a bitch. And all of his wives thought he was a jerk. And the only thing I'm going to say about his son, because the other son they never talked about, but his youngest son, the one who probably, because I actually believe from the gist I'm getting is that his oldest son, I think that his ex-wife took Ian, which is the oldest son, and like ran. Like, I don't think he had any contact with his son after that. And so I think
probably doesn't know who his dad is,
correct,
type of thing.
Correct. So I think Daniel did have, contact with his dad and stuff like that. And I think he even had contact with him up until he died. But what I did find out was that he, according to what has been written, he ended up like living a fairly normal life. I mean, he obviously did the things that you need to do to kind of cope and deal. He doesn't seem to remember much of the things that happened when he was a child, but like he went on to be a successful adult.
Remember something if he's telling his dad to
correct.
Confess. You
yeah.
know?
So, but yeah, I mean, so the good news is he went on and, was a stellar individual. Just because your dad's a piece of shit doesn't mean you are. So there's that. And Kathy, which is his mom, actually, when she found out that Peter had died in prison, she literally was like, good. I'm glad to know the monster's dead. So
yeah, time to stop running.
So it's one of those things that he was old when he died, but if you really think about it, he wasn't in jail all that long before he died, because he went to jail in 2007. So, and he died I guess he died in 2022. I guess that is kind of a long time, but it didn't sound like it was an easy jail time for him.
No, but you also think of when he went to jail and how long he was in jail for, right? So that's where I also believe that there's probably more than 3, because as we've talked about it before, unless you catch him right away,
yeah,
like he
killed 2 people in 1991, and then he didn't go to jail till 1994. So you cannot tell me that he went 3 years without killing anybody. Then he got out in 2004, didn't kill anybody till 2006. Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. Because the people who kill people like him who are serial killers, he doesn't kill because he wants to kill. He kills women because he's going after them to rape them.
Right.
And then he kills them so that they don't fucking tell. So there's no way that he, as a person who was raping women and also abusive as fuck his entire life, there is no way that he just randomly killed 3 people. No, fuck it. You can't sell me on that.
Nope. There's more for sure.
Yeah, I think he especially because he did tend to go towards younger girls too. So again, he had a specific thing that he was doing, and you cannot tell me that he didn't do it. People disappeared and he moved a lot. I mean, why would he move 60 motherfucking times? That's the other thing. Why would you have
many aliases?
Yeah, why would you have so many aliases? And of course, we find out that he has one of the reasons he had an alias in the last murder was because he was a sex offender. Well, yes, he was a sex offender the minute he got convicted of raping the 14-year-old girls. So you're telling me that for 2 years, he just went by his normal ass name and lived his life? No, he didn't.
Nope.
No, he definitely has more victims, 150%. Because again, there's no reason for 40 aliases and 60 addresses unless you're doing shit terribly wrong to people.
Yeah.
What scares me is the fact that their guesstimation was anywhere from 12 to 15 extra people is who he could have killed. I think it could be much higher than that
Probably.
because of how many times he moved and how many times he had alien. To me, the scariest part is nobody will ever know because he's dead and the people that he attacked are most likely gone. And there's nobody out there that really wants to dig into it because it's not worth it to them.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate.
Crazy.
But anyways, so that's Peter Tobin.
Ooh, Peter.
And he's you'll have to
Peter,
look at
the
his
piece of
picture.
shit.
You'll have to look at his picture. He did look like a frail ass old man, though. I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, when I saw his picture, I was like, woof. I was actually, the first time I saw it, I was like, really? Really? Like, nobody could fight this man off?
But he wasn't.
But he wasn't looking like
Yeah.
that when he was, like, attacking women. But in my brain, I was like, what the fuck? But what do you learn? What do you learn from this? So what I learned and what I've continued to learn through these is I'm never going to trust an old man ever.
Don't trust nobody.
Ever. Old men in a church, old men not in a church. I'm not trusting none of you motherfuckers.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, and keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, you motherfucker.
Anyways, so that's it. That's where we're at. If you like what you hear, as usual, please follow us. For those of you who follow us and listen to us all the time, we genuinely appreciate you.
Smash that follow button.
Yeah, please do. It just makes us like doing this even more because we continue to get more followers. We continue to get more downloads, which is great because that means you get to hear my lovely voice. And I think it's fantastic.
Not me. I like your voice.
I'm like,
but not
wait,
my
what?
voice. I sound like Kermit the Frog.
I'm like, hold on. You don't want what? Anyways. Okay. So thank you very much for listening to our story about Peter Tobin and his assy self. And this is the part where I'm going to say goodbye.
And I'll hit you with the bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.